Hello, Lou Hamilton of Audible Elegance, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please do take the time to subscribe to our channel and enjoy our website, audibleelegance.com. We have a new specials section in it for manufacturer specials, and take a look at our events where we introduce new product to the marketplace. I thought I'd take a moment to cover one of the problems that we encounter now and then. As we sell Riga turntables and others, we occasionally have people who complain about acoustical feedback occurring in their systems. It takes the form of, once they reach a certain volume, that they actually begin to hear a sort of roar out of their speakers. And what you've got going on in the speakers, mechanically stimulating the turntable system, and it's a feedback. Now, most turntables that have fixed suspensions, Rigas are fixed, and some of the others we have are also equally fixed. And the problem you get into is, how do you keep that from happening? And tables with that type of suspension are designed to deal with frequencies of essentially 20 hertz and above, the assumption of normal human hearing. And they may stretch down to as little as 7 hertz. The problem becomes is when you're dealing with a very heavy stand or a very heavily loaded stand, the table itself can be light, but it's loaded with a lot of really heavy gear, is that the resonant frequency of that stand goes below 7 cycles. And so it becomes an energy storage unit that takes that below 7 cycle and runs it right through the fixed suspension of the turntable, because the turntable is not designed to deal with it. Now, there are different products that are used to try to deal with it. Isoacoustics makes feet to try to deal with it, and in some applications it works extraordinarily well. But my typical approach is, if you can't do a wall shelf, then whatever the turntable is sitting on should be very light and very rigid. The idea being getting that shelf to go into its resonant frequency above 7 cycles. That way, it actually works as a bandpass filter, and so whatever energy it releases further into the table, feet and such, the table's designed to deal with it, and you don't get that type of feedback loop. So we just had a situation where a customer has a very heavy table, and he has a Naya, and the way his system is set up, he was getting, at reasonable volume and above, he was getting that type of feedback loop. And so I tried to convince him how to do something, and he didn't quite believe me. Actually, he thought I was a nut. Some people think that anyway, and let's not get those rumors started. What I told him to do, because he's in a box business, is to essentially put something as light and as rigid as a sort of pizza box underneath of it, or it could be an Amazon shipping box that would properly fit underneath the feet. And what we're trying to do is an experiment to see what would happen. And what we accomplished is we got rid of 90% of his problem with a cardboard box. So now he understands the concept that what he needs is something light and rigid. He's not permitted, obviously, to put a cardboard box on the floor or a small table that's very light and rigid. Sound Organization used to make them, as well as Audio Tech. Target has some. This is a Target rack, because it's aesthetically not pleasing to the wife. So we have another solution set for him. It's an idea, something extraordinarily light and extremely rigid. And once I get him to come in, I want him to experiment with that. I'm predicting even better success with it, but we want, as it said, the proof of the pudding is in the eat, and we want to see how that all turns out. But in a lot of turntables, light and rigid is actually the answer. There are other tables out there in the market, like VPI and such, that are reliant upon mass and mass absorption. So a light and rigid stand really isn't ideal for a table like that. They're trying to address the problem from a totally different angle. I would throw Oracle Also into the light and rigid stand category. Lin is obviously in the light and rigid, even though it's a sprung suspension as opposed to fixed. So you kind of have to look at how the tables are designed and what their goals are. There are other tables out there that use the Graham tone arm, which were quite lovely arms. And what they actually did was use different metals in the tone arm itself to act as essentially a noise limiting or controlling mechanism. So it was quite clever, actually, a lot of engineering. I don't know if Graham is still around, but certainly it was a work of engineering for sure that I appreciated. So if you're having problems with turntables, and we're not talking about footfalls and the table bouncing and stuff like that, but we're talking about a sort of howl, as we would call it, or a hum, as you're playing it at appreciable volume, then what you've got is a mechanical feedback system going on. Now, those people who have their systems in the basement and on concrete, you're likely never to have that problem. But if you are on a first floor that has, wood floor and a basement underneath of it, the probability of this happening on a very turntable on a very heavy stand is recognized. So those people who have those type of problems, you're more than welcome to write me at lou@audibleelegance.com. That, or you can respond through the YouTube channel, and I'll try to come up with some ideas for you to try. And then from that point on, we can get into more serious, okay, this is what we do now. But we do have a few little tools to use that cost you nothing that you have in your house already, or if not, it's probably in somebody's dumpster, to try, so we can try to figure out exactly mechanically what is happening. And there we are.